I am making a chicken pot pie today, and I thought I would take you guys along with me for the journey and also for emotional support because honestly, this recipe is quite a bit of work, but it sounded really good. I was really craving this, and who doesn't love a good cozy meal, even in the summertime? My house was pretty cold with the AC on, so sometimes it feels like winter in here anyway. But first, I have to go to the grocery store for a few things that I need to make the pie, specifically butter. I will be honest, this recipe takes a lot of butter. If you're not making your own pie crust, probably a lot less butter. But I'm gonna make mine because that's how I usually do it, and I want it to taste like it normally does. I don't want to risk getting a pre-bought pie crust and then it doesn't like hit the spot the same. So I'm going to be taking you guys along with me to the store, and then we can go ahead and get started.
Alright, so at the store, I really just needed stuff for this chicken pot pie and also some things for a little party we're throwing later. So I got some carrots, of course, some chicken breasts. I pretty much have everything else except the butter. Got some more of these sparkling waters because I've been obsessed with them. Milk, also to make the chicken pot pie. And then, of course, like I've been saying, the classic butter. I got the salted one. And now that I'm back home, it is time to get started on the most challenging part, which is the pie crust. I do not have anything to help make this pie crust easier. The recipe that I use says to use a food processor and kind of pulse everything together before adding in the liquids. However, I only have a mini food processor, so that's not going to work. I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, by hand and also with a fork, which takes a lot longer and a lot more effort, but it is worth it. I'm starting by combining 2 cups of flour, a half teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to be adding an entire cup of butter cut into little cubes. They don't have to be perfect little cubes. I just kind of cut them in half and then throw them in. Sometimes I make them a little smaller, but this is honestly the most tedious part of this entire pie, so feel free to do whatever makes this easier for you. And then you're going to want to blend this until the butter pieces are about the size of like peas. So make sure you're breaking all those pieces up no matter what method you do this. If you're using the food processor, this is going to be a lot easier. I just used a fork to kind of crush everything up, and then also used my hands to kind of squish the butter a little bit and make it easier to press with the fork. And this turned out just fine for me. It just took a lot more time and a lot more effort than using the easy route. And then the last 2 ingredients that are needed for this pie crust are going to be a tablespoon of white vinegar and then a 1/4 cup of ice water. You're just going to add both of those and then mix it up real well. And when you're done mixing it, it should look kind of like a pile of crumbs. It shouldn't come together yet. We're going to have to press it together. Next, I'm going to lay out some plastic wrap and just add all of the little crumbly pie crust pieces into it so that we can form it together into like a large ball. Then I just wrap it up, making sure none of it falls out. It always tries to every single time, so use caution or use a bigger piece of plastic wrap than I did. And then you're just going to kind of mold it together with your hands, pressing it really hard so that there aren't any like big cracks in it and that everything is formed together and stuck together. And then when you're done, it should look something kind of like this. It should all stay together after you remove the plastic wrap. And then I'm going to be cutting this in half. I'm using a flour scraper to cut mine. I feel like that is the easiest way to do it. And then once you're done with that, you're going to kind of roll them into their own little balls, and we're going to be flattening them onto discs so that they can chill in the fridge for a little while. I just use a large cookie sheet and put both of mine on the same one and press them down into little discs. They don't have to be completely flat because you're still going to roll these out after they have chilled. They just need some time to chill in the fridge so that they can hold their form and stay together better. And then when you're done flattening out your pie crust discs, you can just go ahead and cover them with plastic wrap and set them in the fridge for about an hour to chill. Alright, now bear with me because this recipe has a lot of steps. Next, we are going to cook the chicken that is going to go in the chicken pot pie. So I'm doing a teaspoon of salt, and then I'm also going to be doing a little sprinkle of cayenne pepper. I believe the recipe calls for like a quarter teaspoon, but I didn't measure it. I just sprinkled some in. I'm going to be using 2 teaspoons of paprika. Then you're going to add about a half teaspoon of black pepper and then a half teaspoon of sugar and mix all of that together. This is going to be the seasonings that you put on your chicken before you bake it. I am cooking my chicken for a long time at a lower temperature, so I'm setting my oven to 325 and it's going to cook for about an hour, so just make sure to leave time for that in your recipe preparations. Next, I'm going to prepare the chicken, so I'm adding a little bit of oil. I used about a tablespoon and a half of oil here. I prefer to use olive oil, but I was out when I did this recipe and completely forgot while I was at the store, so any kind of oil will work for this. Just make sure your chicken is evenly coated with it before you put the seasonings on. And then you are going to just evenly shake those seasonings on and complete that rubbing process until it's kind of worked into the chicken breast. And I used about 2 pounds of chicken for this recipe. Each breast is about a pound. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the seasoning process. Just make sure it is evenly coated and on the bottom as well. Then when you're done with the seasoning process, you can just transfer them straight into like a deep baking dish. I had this disposable one that has been in my cabinet for like 6 months and it gets in my way all the time. So I figured this was the perfect way to get rid of it. But usually I use my glass baking dish for this recipe. So you can use any kind of baking pan that you have on hand for this. It usually has pretty easy cleanup because we're going to use some more butter when we cook the chicken. And you're going to want to cut some butter into little squares and place that around the chicken. I used about 2 tablespoons to cook this. And then we're also going to add in about a cup, maybe a little under a cup of chicken broth. I used chicken bouillon and it turns out just fine every single time, so don't worry about if you don't have actual chicken broth on hand. And you're just going to pour this around the chicken, being careful not to wash all the seasoning off. And then after this, it is ready to go in the oven as long as your oven is preheated, and you're just going to leave it in there for about an hour. You will want to check it halfway through and put some of the butter and chicken broth back over the chicken, just to make sure everything is staying moisturized. And I don't know about you guys, but I cannot focus on a recipe that has so many steps when my kitchen is a mess, so I just kept cleaning up throughout this whole process. I highly recommend it for this recipe because otherwise you're going to end up being so stressed at the end of the night when you have to clean everything up all at once. So I like to clean as I do each step, just to keep things more manageable for me and also keep me sane. This recipe also has a lot of prep time, so it gave me plenty of time to do all these dishes and clean off all my counters before getting started on the next step, which is the filling. I'm starting by chopping up the veggies. I'm using 1 carrot and then about 2 stalks of celery because I felt like it needed a little extra, and I'm adding those to their own little bowl. Then I'm peeling and chopping up a yellow potato into little bite-sized pieces, and that is going to stay separate from the rest of the veggies. And then I'm also going to grind up some white onion in my little mini food processor. This is the one I was talking about. It is definitely a lifesaver, just not big enough to do an entire pie crust. But I really like how thin and fine it chops up the onions. And then we're gonna have some more butter going in. Bear with me, guys. So I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of butter and heat that on medium heat until it melts and gets a little bit bubbly. Then while that's melting, you can take 4 more tablespoons of melted butter and add in a 1/4 cup of flour. Just gonna mix this all together and then set it aside so that I can put it into the filling later when it is time. Then after your butter is melted, you're gonna take the onions, carrots, and celery and put them in the butter to let them saute for, I would say, about 3 to 5 minutes until everything gets kind of soft and a little bit tender. It does not have to be fully cooked yet. We're gonna have some more cook time on this, so do not worry. And then just stir it a few times while you're sauteing it just to make sure everything is cooking evenly. And while you're waiting for that to cook, you can take a 1/2 cup of milk and a tablespoon of cornstarch and just whisk it together. And you're going to set this to the side as well with your butter and flour mixture so it can be added later. Then after your veggies are done sauteing for a little while, you're going to add a cup of condensed chicken broth. If you're using chicken bouillon, just add 2 cubes to 1 cup of water to make your own. I gave mine a good stir, and then you're going to just bring this to a boil before you add in the potatoes. At this point, I go ahead and add in my seasonings. I ended up using about a teaspoon of salt and then a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm also using a teaspoon of sage and a teaspoon of ground thyme, just to add a little bit more flavor to the actual filling itself. I feel like you can never go wrong with some extra seasonings. Just note, if you do use a lot of ground thyme, it will change the color of the filling, which I personally don't mind, but if you do. And then I added a little shake of garlic powder because I feel you can never go wrong with garlic powder. Now that the seasonings and broth are in there, you are going to continue bringing this to a boil, but you can go ahead and add your potatoes at this point so that they can start the cooking process. The recipe I use does call for a russet potato, not a yellow potato, but I like to use the yellow potatoes because they cook a bit faster, and I find that when I use the yellow potato, they are always cooked when I'm ready to finish my filling instead of having to wait longer for them to be tender enough. And then after it comes to a boil, you're just going to cover it with a lid and let it cook for about 10 minutes on a medium-low heat so that all the veggies can get nice and tender. And here's your reminder to make sure that you put that butter and broth mixture over your chicken because I almost forgot. But I use this little sauce brush. I don't know, I can't think of what these are called right now, but I don't have a turkey baster, so this works just as well, I would say, and make sure that everything is staying moisturized. And then you're just gonna pop this back into the oven for the rest of its cook time. And I took the time for some more kitchen cleanup, just so I can stay on top of it, because like I said, this recipe has a lot of steps. After it's been about an hour, you can take out your pie crust and begin rolling them out on a floured surface. I lightly floured a piece of wax paper and used that. Sometimes I do it directly on my counter, but I felt like the wax paper was just as easy and felt a little more sanitary to me. If you're using a normal size pie pan, you're gonna want about a 13-inch diameter piece for the bottom with a little bit of overhang to fold into the top, and then a 10-inch piece for the top. In between rolling out my pie crust, I had to go in and add the flour and butter mixture. And when you add this, you're going to stir it constantly while you bring it to a boil. It will be a little thick. If it seems like it is too thick, you can add a spoonful or two of water just to make sure that there is enough moisture in the pie. If there's not, it won't really have that filling consistency that you're looking for. And then when that finally comes to a gentle boil, you can stir in the milk and cornstarch mixture and bring it to a boil. Yet again, make sure you're scraping the bottom of the bowl to get all the cornstarch. It usually tries to stick a bit after it has sat. And you're just going to mix it really well before you bring it to a boil, and then you can always season to taste. Add some more salt and pepper or any other seasonings you'd like if you feel like it needs a little bit more flavor. I ended up adding about a half teaspoon more of salt and a half teaspoon more of pepper just because I felt like it needed a little something more. And when it has come to a gentle boil, you're going to add in a half cup of frozen peas and mix those in. At this point, you can also add in the chicken if you've already finished it. If you're like me and forgot that you have to cut the chicken up, just go ahead and keep it at a very low heat while you chop up the chicken into little bite-sized pieces, and then you can fold all of that into the filling as well. Once you add in the chicken and mix it well to combined, you are pretty much done with the filling. So all you're gonna have to do now is turn off that heat and cover it with the lid so that it can cool for a bit while you finish up with the pie crust. I am absolutely terrible at rolling pie crust into an even circle. For this one, this is for the top, so I roll it out a little bit extra so that I can score the top and then cut it with a knife so that it fits perfectly into my pie pan. After that, you're just going to add the filling that you set aside to cool. Trust me, if you have a normal size pie pan, it will fit in here. It's just going to feel like it's going to overflow. So I just add everything in before setting that top piece on top. And then you're going to take that little bit of overhang that you left on the bottom piece of pie crust and fold it over so that everything is secure inside of your pie. And do not be discouraged if your pie crust is not pretty, because, I mean, look at mine. It's always lumpy like this. One day I am sure I will master the art of rolling out a pie crust correctly, but for now, this is gonna have to do. And it's okay that it's not beautiful because it tastes absolutely delicious. And then I do an egg wash on top of the pie crust. So I am going to be separating the yolk from one egg and using that egg yolk as well as 2 teaspoons of milk whisked together very well to coat the top of the pie before I bake it. But before I do the egg wash, I am going to go ahead and crimp the edges of my pie with a fork so that everything is held in place and stays together while it's baking. We are in the final stretch here. You're going to preheat your oven to 400, and then this pie is going to cook for about 30 to 50 minutes depending on your oven. Mine ended up cooking for 35 minutes. I checked it about the 30-minute mark and decided it needed a little bit more time. 35 was the perfect sweet spot. You're going to want to wait for it to be bubbly and also be a nice golden brown on the top. Then when it is done, you can go ahead and take it out of the oven and let it sit for about 5 minutes to cool before you go ahead and cut into it. And let me just say, this was the longest 5 minutes of my life. I was definitely in anticipation of this delicious pie. And this is just my absolute favorite pot pie recipe. It turns out so good and honestly just really tastes like home. Definitely a very nostalgic meal for me. So I always love making a chicken pot pie, especially taking the effort to make a pie crust from hand. I feel like makes it so much more special, and I absolutely enjoyed this meal. It was just what I was looking for, the perfect cozy dinner to end the day, and also packed with a ton of protein from that chicken. And after this had cooled for 5 minutes, I couldn't wait any longer, so I cut right into it and ended up using a spoon to serve it. I did get a plate at first, but definitely I think easier to eat this out of a bowl. So I swapped to a bowl. I hope that you guys enjoyed making this cozy little meal with me. It was definitely exactly what I was craving and came out perfectly. If you try this recipe, let me know if you enjoy it, and also let me know what your favorite comfort food is. That kind of gives you that taste of home, gives you a nostalgic feeling. I would love to hear about it. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up before you leave, and also subscribe down below for more wellness, lifestyle, and cooking content. And maybe even share this with somebody who would also love this recipe. I thank you all so much for joining in today, and I hope you have an amazing day and an amazing week. See you in the next one.